Today we're going to talk about the 6 ways to create emphasis in art. So let's get started. So principles of art, emphasis, one of the 10 principles. So what is it? It's to call attention to a specific area of a painting. So it directs the viewer's eyes right to that spot before they look anywhere else in the painting. So it's the focal point, the most important area, and it creates the visual interest, the drama, or excitement. And contrast is used to create this. So how do you do it in pet portraits? You draw the attention where it matters the most. Creating emphasis in pet portraits, it's about directing the viewer's eyes to the most important area. So what do you think is the most important area in pet portraits? Usually, and I say usually it's the eyes. The focal point is most often the eyes, as they capture the personality and the soul of the animal. The eyes are the window to the soul. You hear that saying all the time. So understanding how to use the principles of emphasis, how to effectively use it, can transform your painting from being flat into the feeling alive and engaging and being able to tell a story and keep your viewer engaged and involved. So what exactly is emphasis? In art, emphasis is used to call attention to the specific area of a painting. It creates a visual interest, drama, and excitement. It ensures that the viewer's eyes naturally settle on that focal point first, like I said, before it goes anywhere else in the painting. And for pets, this is usually meant for the eyes. It's reserved for that highlight, that sparkle in the animal's eyes, but it can also be that unique texture or patterning that's on your cat, or that really nice, soft, fluffy fur that might be that rabbit, or the unique texture that your horse's muzzle has. But the key to achieving this emphasis is contrast. Contrast is the key. So using contrast to create emphasis is the difference between your painting looking flat and boring and making things stand out. So there are 6 types of contrast that you can use to create emphasis and bring life to your pet portraits. You have your size contrast, which is big versus small. And here you have this big stag, which I think is an elk, versus the small distant landscape. And definitely this stag really stands out compared to his small background, small and blurry background. And you have a shape contrast, which is your regular shapes versus your irregular shapes. So in this painting by Jean-Baptiste Audry, you have a painting that depicts a dog, which has more geometric shapes like your squares and your circles. And he is attacking this beautiful fluid swan, but the swan has more irregular shapes. So you have definitely a different shape contrast between these two. You also have the example of if you had a smooth round nose against the rough textures of the fur. These can also pull a viewer's eyes in. You have saturation contrast, which is the bright versus the dull colors. And so, for example, using highly saturated colors around the eyes or the nose to make them really pop out while keeping the rest of the fur really muted and soft. So for Rosa Bonheur, the horse fair, 1852 to 55, she used really vibrant horse colors, but had a real muted background. So see how the white horse here just really pops out right here, how it just really just comes to the foreground. And the background is just real muted out. And then this is my painting. I used colored pencil and graph and pastel. I muted out the background and blurred it out. So it really mutes out. And then I added vibrancy and saturation to the eyes, and then a really bright highlight. And I have a lot of contrast in here too for the lights and the darks. So her eyes really stand out, and everything else just kind of blurs and is muted around her. So it just really brings the focus right into her face, but all of the rest of this just kind of mutes out. You also have hue contrast, which is your complementary colors, where you have your yellow and your purple, which are opposites on the color wheel. Or you have your blue and your orange, which is what this one did. And you can also do blue eyes with an orange fur for a cat, which again would be very visually interesting and grab your attention. And you have your oranges and your reds and your greens for your complementary colors as well. And you have your texture contrast, which is your rough versus your smooth. So for Albert Dürer here, you have the young hare, and he shows really masterfully how he has the rough, really nice fur texture that he used with the body paint is what they called it back then I think this was painted in like 1500s, which is actually gouache, opaque watercolor, and regular watercolor. Yeah, timestamp on that is 1505 is when Albert painted this. Anyways, he has this really rough hair, and then he has this marbly-like background, which is real smooth. So this shows a real great contrast between rough versus smooth. And then you can also have soft fur with the crisp whiskers or highlights in the eyes. And you have your value contrast, which is your lights versus your darks. You have your dark pupils, which is like what I did with my dog. My dog portrait, I had the dark pupils, and I had a really bright highlight, which instantly drew my viewer's focus right into her face. And Theodore Jericho here has his white Arabian horse with his really dark background. So you're really drawn into this horse. And then Karel Frabetus has the golden finch here, where he's got the lighter color background with the shadows. And this actually is a pet that they had back in the 1600s. They actually chained the goldfinch, and they loved listening to the songs that they sang, and they chained them and kept them as pets in their house. So when you bring it all together for pet portraits, emphasis can be a secret weapon that really adds emotional impact to all of your paintings. Because think about it, when you add the highlight, you make them sparkle. You add life into your animal's eyes. You make the viewer really just focus on the eyes. And if you add sharpness around the nose and the mouth, but you blur out the fur and the rest of the body, again, you're bringing the viewer right into that face. So that's where you bring your focus. So you can increase the value contrast, the darks versus the lights, to also bring in the focal area. And you can just make your backgrounds really muted to, again, bring the focus onto your pet. So before you start painting, really analyze your pet reference photo and ask yourself, where do you want your viewer to look? Where do you want that focal point to be? What do you want your viewer to feel? What emotion are you trying to depict? What story are you trying to tell? What do you want to say about this animal or this pet that you're painting? Do you know anything about this pet? Have you talked to the owner of this pet? Do you know some information about this pet that you're trying to depict in this painting that you are painting? Any personality traits? Any quirks? Try to capture those. Try to convey those to the viewer. Try to evoke the emotions and try to tell that pet's story by using your contrast. And push and enhance the focal point. So why does emphasis matter? Or why does it matter so much? Because if you're painting your pet or you're creating this commission, you're emphasizing those key features. And that can make all the difference between a flat portrait and one that really captures the heart and soul of your subject. You are trying to tell a story. You're trying to capture that minute in time. And you're trying to give that viewer and perhaps the person that has hired you to create that special time and memory. You're trying to give them that unique personality back that they have lost. So you're trying to honor that memory. Whether it's a feathery, furry, or scaly friend, use emphasis that ensures you bring out the character and create art that they will cherish forever. So remember that great art isn't just about copying that photo. It's about guiding the viewer's experience and evoking an emotion. With emphasis and contrast, you're not just painting a pet. You are telling their story. And keep that story in mind when you're painting. And put your heart and your soul into painting their soul with emphasis. And my next video will be about rhythm.